afraid. You know this place far better. You committed, invested, you fought for its dignity, autonomy and independence. And I come from another space, so there is very little that I can tell you about what you need to do. But allow me to share some concerns about things which may have some relevance to the concerns which make you struggle and fight. So the entire group of Assam Nagarik Samaj, people from Meghalaya, from Manipur, the indigenous communities represented here, and some science promotion organizations. I am delighted to meet all of you and immensely grateful that you thought of giving your time. Census is a boring subject and nobody will disagree with it. It's boring for ordinary citizens. Ordinary citizens don't even bother to think about what the census is, when it is, where the census is. They spend an entire life. I mean, somebody who's attained the age of 99, ask that person, did you ever hear of the census? And they say, yeah, I heard the word, but I don't know what it means, what it does, where it lives, or what is who are its employers, etc., etc. And yet, I will be talking about this subject for a while and then move on to the larger picture. I have been engaged, I have been interested in languages. I spent decades and decades struggling for preserving language diversity in the country, I believe. I have two firm beliefs. One is the Indian civilization. If one were to think of a single spine for that civilization, it is a linguistic civilization. That is, it is a civilization which is still trying to bring many languages together. The Indo-Aryan in some measure, but the Dravidic languages, the languages in the northeast, beginning with Proto-Assamese, about which a lot of work needs to be done, but the Tibeto-Burman and so on. Prakruts, languages emerging from Prakrit. So Indian civilization, at least for the last 3,500 years, is the story of a dialogue, a conflict, a collaboration between these different language groups, and that story is still not completed. I will come to this point at the very end of what I have to say. The second thing I believe is, and in what I said just now, is one of the keys to unlock the future path for this country. Just imagine on the map of India, the areas which are Dravidic speaking, areas where languages have emerged clearly more from Prakrut rather than from Sanskrit, such as Maharashtra, Orissa, Bengal, and the northeast. That makes a larger India than the India which emerges out of Indo-Aryan languages. And very clearly the political clash has a kind of if you wanted to use the term bedrock structure, seismic structure. That is a very long story stretching over 3,500 years, from 1500 before Christ till today. But I'll come to that towards the end. The second thing in which I believed all my life is that diversity alone is the guardian of democracy. When diversity declines, democracy declines. When diversity blossoms, is allowed to breathe freely, then democracy is relatively safer. It may not be so with other democracies in the world. But in a country, it may not be so with British democracy or Swiss democracy. Perhaps for Switzerland that is so. But it is certainly so. Diversity is at the heart of democracy in a country like India, which has declared itself as a union of states, constitutional states, that India is a union of states. And what are the states in India? Soon after independence, they were made linguistic states. At least in the 50s till 1965, then that process stopped. Sometimes it resurfaces again and again. It is an ongoing process. Just as the Himalayas are still trying to settle as a mountain, this process is still not finally and fully settled. It will continue in Indian political scene and social scene for not just decades but centuries to come. So, census was of interest to me from the point of view of languages, and census, which the origin of that term in Latin fragmented into two terms in the English language sometime in the 17th century. One word became censor, as in the censor board, is to control, and the other is census, and that is to look at the state from people's perspective. Who are the people, what they do, what religions they are, what languages they are, how do they migrate, how is the growth, what is the gender balance, etc., etc. So from the same word, at the two ends is the state, at the other end censor and the census. Census is pro-people. It is expected to be pro-people. Censor is pro-state. The origin is the same. But that is part of, and perhaps Sanjay will be able to say more about the history of the political thought and how the state and the nation meaning people, nation, the meaning of the word nation is people. Initial meaning of the word nation is people. But how the state and the nation came together to form the people and an apparatus forming nation state history. But that is very theoretical. What I am saying is very theoretical. I was interested in the process of census from linguistic point of view, because the census has been, Indian census has been suppressing names of languages for a very long time. I will give a measure of suppression. In 1971, when I was doing my research at the university, at some university, I came across the census data on languages, which had listed 109 languages as languages. Then this is for 1971 census. Then I looked at 1961 census to check if the number of languages had gone down or gone up in relation to the last 10 years ago. And I was shocked. In the 1961 census, I found names of 1,652 languages. So from 1,652, the number had been brought down to 109. Dr. Narendra will tell us, the complexities of the demographer. What was the reason? In that 108 were names of languages, 109th read all others. So this was giveaway. All others refer to those other 1,500 more names, more than 1,500 names suppressed in 71 census. The reason was Bangladesh, the data of 71 census came out in 70, language data came out in 76 or 77. R.C. Nigam had published that. He was part of the Census Commissionerate, Registrar General of Census. So the reason was Bangladesh had become an independent country on the point of language. The government of India feared at that time, and the government in India in 1970s was full of fear, if you remember. So it feared that India also might split into different nations if languages and Language diversity is blown up out of proportion. Therefore, it wanted to suppress. It was these things that actually shaped my life, working life. I went out to check where these other languages had gone, and then whichever I identified, the People's Linguistic Survey was a collaborative people's movement. That survey came out. It's published in 50 volumes, covering about 780 languages. I am very proud and glad to say that all languages of Manipur have been covered in that. All languages of Meghalaya have been used, Khasi speaking, but it's also Garo and varieties, other varieties are mentioned in that, and language varieties of Jaintia, Hills and so on, and of course Assam, plenty of them. This time I was trying to see the figures, because from 61 to 2011 the figures had gone down. I'm not talking of 71 census, but 1652. In 2011 the figure had come to 1369. That means 280 languages had died. So since then I had been looking at, I was waiting for this census and keeping an eye on their meetings, when they decide the schedules, how they draw the questionnaire and everything. I was very curious. 2019 meetings of the census, Registrar General of Census holds meetings for different subjects. All those meetings were completed. In 2020, budget allocation was made for the census. In 2021, the census should have taken place. It did not. The reason was corona epidemic. So I understand. I mean, there is no question. But I think I understand, because my niece allow me. It's not to make speech or keynote or something. In 23, India is a signatory to an international understanding on census, that is under United Nations, and all the nations who are state parties who have involved themselves in that exercise of formulating principles and norms of census, and they are published in a book form. India is one of those state parties. All other countries completed the census, and I'll be quite happy to share that document with you. If you send a mail to me, I'll pass it on. All other countries completed, but India did not in 2023. The reason is why? In 2019, the census authorities were ready to carry out a census. 21, the census could not take place. In 23, all other countries complete their census, but India does not. Now this, in 23 April, a statement came from Home Minister, and which started making this whole story like a big crime story. So I was otherwise interested in the census in a bored way, but I was suddenly started getting interested in the census in a very excited way. What is the reason? That was the question, and no reason was given in that April 23 statement. In April 23, other things were happening in the country. In April 23, there was a horizon of the 24 elections, 400 par or 300 par. What was that? 400 par. Now, in that 400 par, the BJP said they will get at least 380, and their allies will get some. Therefore, 400 par. Now, why 380? Because if you have a Lok Sabha of 540, it is 543, but for easy calculation I am making it 540, 54 into 10, 540. 2/3 of it is 360. So a little over 360 is what they were aiming at. 2/3 of majority. That was their horizon of 24. In 2023, a very big meeting of RSS took place in Kurukshetra, in which they decided that in view of the 24 elections, where the BJP was to emerge with clear two-thirds plus majority in Lok Sabha, they would make certain changes. What were those changes? So I mean, suddenly this story started looking like a big crime story to me. The facts were, it's an unrelated fact, but I need to bring that in this discussion. In India, this what we call Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, were not something which were formulated only through the Constituent Assembly. Those structures had come to us not with the same names, but in essence similar, very similar. Way back in 1920s, and then by 1936 we already had a state council of states. There was an assembly, bicameral, having two houses, had happened in India in 1937. The Constituent Assembly was an elected body, which was kind of what is our Lok Sabha now, and had larger numbers until Pakistan became, another nation, and 295 or some members were left in the Constituent Assembly. They formed our constitution. There is a provision in that constitution for increasing the number of people's representatives, and that procedure is called delimitation, that is removing the limits. That term limit is used in two senses, two meanings. One is, if you say we are now 28 persons, 30 persons, but if we become 90 here, the space will have to be redivided between us. So the limit of the space has to be redesigned. That is one. The cartography, the geography of the geographic extents will have to be redesigned. But also to the limit of the number of representatives has to be changed. That is, if we decide instead of 30 of us, let there be 90 of us. That is, we are removing the limit. So it is called delimitation. Delimitation is a process which relates to change in the number of representatives of people, as well as change therefore change in the geographical extent from which every member emerges. That is delimitation. So that process is called delimitation. In the 50s, that delimitation was carried out, and our population was something 38 crores or something like that. So at time of independence, so we had roughly 300 and odd 350%. I am not giving exact numbers, but I am trying to oversimplify. In the 60s, that delimitation was carried out again, and the number was increased to some 400 plus. In the 70s, the delimitation was carried out, and because in 1971 census, the population of India was 54 crores and 30 lakhs. If you have to give one member per 10 lakhs, for 54 crores and 30 lakhs, it will become 543. Actually, the number fixed was 550. Now it has become 543 through various complexities, but I will not get into that as well. In the 50s, delimitation helped the parliament to increase the numbers. In the 60s, that was done. In the 70s, it was done. But in the 70s, it was observed that the population growth rate of one state is not the same as population growth rate of another state. For instance, Meghalaya has a certain growth rate, which in comparison with Goa is not the same. So the question came, would it be, I am only taking these as examples, would it be proper to allow Meghalaya and Goa to be weighed equally in terms of the absolute number of population, or some other system is necessary. So in the 70s it was decided, let us, collective wisdom, let us wait for 25 years. And after 25 years, when population growth rates across states are stabilized, this country will do a delimitation, fresh delimitation. In 2001, once again, so the fresh delimitation had to happen in 2001, after 25 years. Once again, the government at that time, in its collective wisdom, because it was in a way minority government, 2/3 majority was not with the government in that government, Vajpayee government. So it was decided we wait for another 25 years, and 2002 Act said a delimitation can be carried out after any census after 2026. That is from measuring from 2001, another 25 years was becoming 26. So why was the 23 census not carried out in 2023 but postponed till 26, which is the present year? The reason is the government wanted to complete its delimitation process. There is nothing wrong in it. It is a democratic process. But when I realized that this was the reason, in April 23, Minister for Home Affairs Amit Shah, made a statement in the parliament, and at that time suddenly, as a strange accident, coincidence, some documents came in my hands. They reached me, which showed that the RSS has already drawn maps of constituencies after delimitation. That is, ready-made cartography is completed. The number of constituencies to be created according to that document, and that document is published. I will mention where you can get it. That there is a book by Gautam Desiraju. It is called Delimitation for a Better Democracy in India, which was published in 25 perhaps, but based on the 2023 discussions in the RSS at Kurukshetra. About the time this was happening, a new Lok Sabha, new Parliament House was constructed, and the architect was from Ahmedabad, Bimal Patel, whom we know actually. Initially, the Parliament building had to have just about the same number of, the new Parliament building was to have just about the same number of seats. But suddenly, Bimal Patel was called and told, without much explanation, to increase the number of sitting spaces in the Parliament House. 2023. By the way, if you remember when this new Parliament House was inaugurated, that's good. If you don't, I would like to remind you. I am moving a little further from census, but it's all related to the census. It was done in the year 2023. Now, what is such a big thing about 2023? That year celebrated the centenary of a publication by a man called Savarkar, V.D. Savarkar, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. 1923, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar wrote an essay which subsequently, it was written anonymously, pseudonym, not anonymous, under another name he had written. Later it became a book. That essay was called The Essentials of Hindutva. The centenary of that book had to be celebrated. And it was, this house was inaugurated on 28th May. which is centenary, birth or death centenary for Savarkar. So 2023, this government, BJP government, looking at on the horizon of 24, where they are expecting to get more than 2/3 majority, they had prepared the Hindu Rashtra with that Senghor or whatever was brought from, strange thing from south. They brought Rajadanda, and an emperor like man walked in and sat there. So the very clear insignia of the Hindu Rashtra, with full preparation, with great confidence. The people of India were wise, and they did not actually give those many seats, and suddenly things changed. The RSS had also redistributed itself in 2023 from 44 vibhags to 88 vibhags. That is, I will not get into that. It's the way they work, and they are almost equivalent to the states in their imagination of a Hindu Rashtra. I'll leave all that aside. So this Desiraju's book clearly said rewriting of the entire political landscape is the intention of the delimitation. The intention of delimitation should be to make the number of representatives more responsible to the number of voters, because in 70s per 10 lakh there was, per 1 million there was one MP in Lok Sabha. Now the population has increased nearly 3 times, but same number continues, and that's a big problem. The census is important for delimitation, because the Delimitation Act says that only the census data will be recognized as official data for delimitation purpose. By the way, the census is made in our country legally completely immune. Nobody can challenge the census. Nobody can challenge the census data, to the extent it cannot be dragged into the Supreme Court as well, or High Court. To the extent that the census data cannot even be used as evidence in any court. It is made such a holy cow. It's made as absolutely unquestionable, because the structuring of the census we inherited from Mayo's 1871. Lord Mayo started census in 1871, and the structuring of the census is layer after layer after layer, has been pro-government. It's only after independence that the governments of India, various governments of India, started using census data for increasing access to welfare measures and so on. Now where are we? This delimitation conspiracy I explained. We have moved, the country has moved ahead. Actually, the government did not get, the BJP did not get 2/3 majority. It somehow managed to form a government. It tried to put the delimitation idea on the shoulders of women's reservation, because that was plan B. In case we don't get 2/3 majority, how do we bring in delimitation? So women's reservation was passed by all parties, but the ruling party said, but we will do it after 26 census, because the census is likely to happen. There was no need for a women's reservation is in terms of percentage. Whether there are 10 MPs, let's say, whether there are 30 MPs in the parliament, or 300 MPs, or 3,000 MPs, when the law says 1/3 of the number, it doesn't matter what the number is. Out of 30, 10 can be women MPs. Out of 300, 100 can be women MPs. Out of 3,000, 1,000 can. There was no need for census as far as women's reservation was concerned. Absolutely, I mean, it's complete. It has no logical. I mean, even elementary school child will understand that to make 1/3 of something, you don't have to worry about what is the total number, except for where it is indivisible. But there is a law that if it is less than half, 0, more than half, full 1. That But this was plan B of BJP, that if they don't get two-thirds majority for doing delimitation, they would bring the idea of delimitation on this, making it sit on the shoulders of women's reservation. That failed. So now, is the census as dangerous for us now as it was about 6 months back? I will try to answer that. I mean, you will say, but delimitation motion is defeated, so why are you so worried about the census? The answer is as follows. In the past, the census data is normally released within in installments. The first is gross data, and then there is final data, or we call it final data or something like that. The gross data comes out soon after. The final data takes for different aspects of the census various length of time. For language data, it takes 6 to 8 years. For population data, it takes a few months. For religion, etc., it takes a little longer. For migration, it takes still a little longer, etc. This time the census officer has said, Registrar General of Census has said, that the 1st March 27 is the defining date. It is called reference date. 1st March 27 is the reference date. That means in historical records in future, it will be written that the census was carried out on 1st March 27. For the ease of understanding, that's how the census works. While the exercise is spread over almost a year, the Registrar General of Census has said that they will come out with the final figures, not gross, final figures, final data by December 27. That is, in March they will conclude. In 9 months' time, the count of the people they are making is a mass unprecedented in human history. Entire human history, more than 140 crores are to be counted. And also they are committed to count caste census. And the number of castes is phenomenally large. In People of India series, I think KSC, more than 4,000 communities are mentioned. And in other reports, sometimes 12,000 communities, 16,000 communities. We don't know how many castes there are and sub-castes. It is not just humanly impossible, it is even Googly impossible. Even the most intelligent computer will fail in grasping the spellings made, those who fill the forms by themselves because of technologically, you have to register your data. There will be enormous amount of errors in this. To correct all those errors or to segregate them will have to be done not by machines. There will have to be anthropologists and demographers and linguists and mathematicians to be working. And nearly 35 lakh people will be involved in this enumeration. So, the Registrar General of Census is saying by December we will do it. Who is the Registrar General of Census? He is an IS officer who was secretary to Yogi Adityanath in UP cadre and promoted from there to central government, where he became secretary to Mr. Shah and is brought into the census office. So he is clearly a person with a lot of synchronization of the neuronic circuits, neural circuits. We don't know if the SIR data will be entirely endorsed by the census. I'll just add one more thing and then stop perhaps. SIR is a worry for all of us in Assam, in the Northeast, in the rest of the country, because citizens, despite being citizens, are being told that they cannot be electors. And you know all about this SIR and the National People's Register and the Citizenship Act. We all agitated against that. There is the SIR census, and a third animal is born. The third animal is, two menacing animals already threatening our citizenship rights. But the third animal is called a high-level committee on demographic changes, which was constituted recently, but after Narendra Modi declared from the Red Fort in 2025 that such a committee would be appointed. It is given four objectives. One is to study, in the first place, when the census is going on, why should yet another demographic study? Because the census tells you all about how many religions, who follows which religion, etc., etc., how many languages, who speaks which language, everything is there in the census. But this demographic committee has no demographer as a member. But I'll tell you who the members are. But it has four objectives. One is to see if in state by state, if there is any unusual growth of any particular religious or linguistic community. In in simple words, they are going to see if Christians or Muslims have increased in any particular state. Second objective is to see if there is any infiltration in that state. The third objective is to prepare a mechanism by which such infiltration can be stopped or reduced. Now, this third objective needs to be looked at closely. There already is a law in the country about those who come from other countries who are illegal migrants, and to deal with those illegal migrants, there is a proper procedure. There is an officer in every state. Those people are sent to what is called the holding centers. Then they are sent out, etc., etc. This mechanism that they are looking at was shown as a trailer in Bengal recently. I was told by a Rajya Sabha member there that gangs of RSS members hounded out dwellers of certain localities. They were hounded out beyond the India-Bangladesh border on India's side, and Bangladesh did not accept them, and therefore these people in the in-between space, like Manto's Toba Texing, Sadat Hasan Manto's character, neither in Pakistan nor in India. Some hundreds have been hounded out in Bengal. That is what a TMC Rajya Sabha member told me. I believe that similar things are being noticed in the Northeast also. In other words, if the census decides to endorse SIR through data doctoring, and data doctoring does happen, there are very specific instances of data doctoring. In 2001 census, the population figures for UP, Haryana and Gujarat had suddenly increased in comparison with 91 census, and later if you compare those with 2011. In 2001 it was Vajpayee government, and in UP Rajnath Singh was the chief minister, in Gujarat Narendra Modi was chief minister, in Haryana Chautala's government was there. Data doctoring at macro level happens in the census. If it happens, if census is non-questionable in any court, if The members of the demographic committee include the Registrar General of Census. While he is very busy with this big census exercise, he is made member of the high-level demographic committee. A former police officer is made a member of the demographic committee. And the Home Ministry has, Home Ministry has created that. It doesn't have to be answerable in the Parliament also. Shall we, after December 28, the duration of the tenure of the demographic committee is for 1 year, extendable by 60 days, and probably sometime in the second half of 2027. By December we will get the census data. A little earlier we will have got the demographic committee report, and at that time, if the apprehension is, if the RSS decides, volunteers decide to take that data seriously and start hounding out people in the border areas in Gujarat, in Kutch, in Rajasthan, in Punjab, in Bengal, Himalayan states and the northeast. And if law is taken in the hands by gangs of people, the numbers this way hounded and therefore not having recourse to normal judicial process will be very large. In short, leading to an unprecedented genocide. Can we do something? Can we question the census? The answer is no. I tried going to, sending RTI, going to Supreme Court, nothing can be done. But we can do something, and that is, we can prepare in advance, ahead of the report of the demographic committee, a people's demographic report based on all the previous census records from 1951 onward, and based on estimates for 21 and 31 population estimates, exposing the likely data doctoring to come in December 27. If we can do that much before December 27, probably by December 26 itself, I have no doubt in my mind, and I am saying it as a sane person, not as an insane person. I don't represent any political party or any organization. I am not boasting about anything. This government has a lot of power and police and financial power, muscle, but it lacks in courage. It's cowardly. Some years back, the government decided to bring out a report of history of India for last 12,000 years. Some of us got together and actually produced a parallel report before the government's report came up. They dissolved that committee. Mr. Shah's committee, Demographic Commission, will be cold stored. You remember in CA, this book came out. This is called The Indians' Histories of a Civilization. Tony Joseph and Ravi Kori. Tony Joseph is a journalist in Genesis, and Ravi Korish is an archaeologist, and me. We prepared this. Government shared their committee. The government can shelf the Demographic Commission. At least the kind of anger which will be generated in the minds of people, because people are in the habit of taking census as the Bible or the Gita, complete truth, like they are in the habit of taking the Supreme Court as the giver of justice. Lawyers may know that that is not so, but ordinary people don't know that census can be doctored. Even very highly educated people don't think about the census because nobody has thought about the census except for some few demographers and social scientists who publish their articles on based on census data. If we can prepare this based on the earlier censuses and preparing estimates of populations on religious, state-wise, district-wise, it is possible for us to prepare such a report. If we can do it, we will be able to reduce the misconception in the minds of the people, which will be brought in by the demographic committee, that Christians and Muslims have been infiltrating India. They are foreigners, they have come, they are trying to overtake Hindus. And if that anger is reduced, the genocidal action won't happen except for isolated episodes. Whether the government's committee is dropped or not is another thing. But if people know that कि ये एक data set है, ये दूसरा data set, we can prepare that दूसरा data set based on available census data of the past and other sources. It's not too complicated an exercise. I've spoken to colleagues in Rajasthan and Gujarat, they're ready to do it. I've spoken to people in some other parts of the country, they are ready to do it. It will be great if today we can form a small group to prepare such a report. It won't take too much of time, but even if it takes time, it is worth doing it in the interest of human life, whether it's Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, no matter what. That is. I have a second suggestion to make to you. That has taken too much time, but second, I come from Karnataka. I moved to Karnataka after 2014, when Karnataka still had a non-BJP government and Gujarat had a BJP government. And initially nobody there understood the dangers of, they thought BJP government is like any other, one government goes, another comes, so all are corrupt. All governments are corrupt. That's people are alienated from political class, really. And that's what Gen Z has said. We put together the civil society there under the title Eddelu Karnataka, Wake Up Karnataka, any word. I was involved in that exercise. I'm not saying credit, that's not the question. An experiment was carried out, it succeeded here in the Northeast. Your total population is in percentage of the total, in proportion to total population of India is not more than 4%, if I am not wrong. Maybe 3.5 to 4%. But you have immense space to influence the rest of India, immense space to influence the rest of India by creating not a state specific but a region specific forum of youngsters. The Gen Z Northeast, Z N E or NEZ or whatever you want to call it, because your young people from the Northeast are seen. There was a saying during the colonial times, somebody has written, an English writer has written, an English brown head was not seen in India. That means only very young Englishmen came to rule India. Very old people from England. It is the young northeastern people are seen in Bangalore, in Hyderabad, in Chennai, in Bombay. For whatever reason, at least in my mind, the image of the Northeast is that of young people. Such a forum, just formation of a forum, and with your history of people's, students, political parties and all that, and even in say various movements, Bodo movement for students, Bodo Students Association, Mizo Students Association, students, it will be convincing. Secondly, the BJP cannot create such a forum because they are working, groaning under the burden of RSS, which is their forum. They cannot create a parallel forum. A non-party, non-state, Northeast Young People's Forum, Generation Z forum. Just a declaration of that will actually send a message in India that this movement which happened in Delhi is not, it cannot be put out anymore, and that will like a lamp burning on a distant hill, showing people walking in dark forest some hope. This will become a hope for the rest of the country. I have traveled to many other states, and I think this experiment just cannot fail. It has 100% guarantee of success. You should do it. I think you should take it up, lead it. Just announce it. This is the right time. So these are one request is to make a people's demography report committee. I will remain involved. I will come again. We can sit down, discuss how it is to be done. We did a book on delimitation. I got a copy for the Mizoram, Manipur people. This has lists of all assemblies and all local Sabha seats which will eventually get impacted by delimitation in the country. I will give a book, a copy for the Meghalaya people, Meghalaya friends, and one from Assam. And every MLA or potential MLA will benefit by this. It is based on exact correct calculations. We spent several months with help of some people in Bangalore and Pune who understand mathematics and statistics and demography and so on. And those people. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time and kindness.